29th of October?
Yes.
Yes, it is.
Are we on?
You're on.
Guys, we
live?
are live.
Wow.
It is 6:59. We are 60 seconds prior to 7 o'clock. We try to be on time.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, and we're off and running.
And it's October 29th, and
October
it is
29th.
the perfect day, I think, to have this Tuesday at 7 because, from my perspective, Midnight Syndicate, Ed and Gavin, they're the sound of Halloween. And so I think to do this interview 2 days before Halloween is perfect timing. Excellent. But we jump on just a few minutes early so that folks have the opportunity to share. For those folks who watch Tuesday at 7, you know that every single time you share, your name gets put into a drawing. And Ed graciously has CDs and some movies that will give away next week for everybody who shares. So I know that those who are familiar with sharing, you can just hit the share button and share it to a group of folks. There's a whole bunch of communities, creative communities, musical communities, hunt communities, makeup communities that would recognize your music and want to watch this. You can also share it to your entire friends list. You can share it to 3 friends. So share off because next week we're going to be giving some stuff away. What are we giving away next week?
Oh, I got a lot of stuff. I'm bringing out some of my favorite Midnight Syndicate things. A little Realm of Shadows release here that we did. Our second album. It's a reissue. We just added an extra bonus track that we had cut out before, and same album, but good. It's just a great.
You guys recognize this?
Oh man, it's classic. It's early Midnight Syndicate. So it's just nice atmospheric stuff. We have
a reissue.
Then we have Gates of Delirium here, which is our Gavin's favorite CD of ours, where we kind of like take you through a haunted asylum, and we felt like this album we really kind of expanded our the use of sound effects in our album. Out of the Darkness, people just like this. It's some of our favorite tracks from the first couple albums that we did.
I listen to this one all the time.
Yeah, it's just good atmosphere. There's not really a theme to it. It's just a collection of music, from our first 5 or 6 years. Definitely our best-selling album of all time, right here, 13th Hour. Who would have thought? Our Haunted Mansion album. Again, the use of sound effects and music in this one makes it a top favorite. And there's a lot of the most popular songs on there. Carnival Arcane. If you like circuses and clowns, I figured this is another just one of those albums that I felt like, wow, if we're doing a dark, creepy circus album, mixing sound effects and music, I think we really did well with that. We had Jason Carter do voiceovers on it, and that's kind of cool. It was awesome. Monsters of Legend, just cool because we got to work with the Universal licensing people and stuff like that, and made something a tribute to the movies that we all love. And yes, Christmas. Look, I'm just throwing them all, but these are my favorites. Christmas album. We did a Christmas album, I guess it's been 3 years ago, where we just did Midnight Syndicate versions of Christmas music, and this is very well maybe my favorite Midnight Syndicate album. I love it that much. Yeah, go figure, right? But it's just, I love it. It's just so much fun. Oh, and then there's this one, because not a lot of people got this album. It's the Zombies soundtrack. So there's a board game called Zombies, and we're really good friends with them, people that make it. We've been working with them forever. And so we said, hey, they use their music from Midnight Syndicate music when they play the game. Why don't you make a soundtrack for the game? So we took some of our tracks that work really well for the game and mixed it with a bunch of original materials. And it came out, but I think a lot of people saw it and were like, oh, I don't know the Zombies board game. And maybe, it just kind of flew under the radar. But it's a really good disc, so whoever wins gets to check this one out. I think you're going to dig it.
Wow.
And then, of course, the Dead Matter movie that we did back in 2010.
But it has the movie in 2
Oh,
CDs,
yeah,
right?
yeah. It's got the soundtrack, all the music that we did for it. And it's got Halloween Music Collection, which is like a best of Midnight Syndicate, at least for the first 12 years of our existence. And the behind-the-scenes stuff on this is like really good. It was done by my friend Frank Perman, and he, for an independent production, he really went all out with behind the scenes. So if you're interested in filmmaking and things like that, the Dead Matter has got a bunch of cool little extras.
So there's a whole bunch here, and on good weeks, you probably notice that there's 25, 30, 35 shares. And if with all these items,
maybe
you have a really good chance of winning something next week. So,
absolutely.
But usually we start off by giving away an item from the previous Tuesday at 7. And I've been wearing this around the house. I've been sporting it around. Not really, but we're
then
giving
we
away
watched it.
the mummy, the mummy and the monkey T-shirt from our last interview a few weeks ago. And essentially, everybody who shared their names are in this hat. So, Ed, if you'll.
Oh wow!
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, well, all right, okay, all right. Well, I'm making this more difficult than it has to be.
You gotta pick exactly the right one.
Okay, well, now there's 2 in here? Okay, we go. Oh,
Well,
it is. Here we go.
Yeah, it's kind of.
The winner is Lori Hardin.
Lori Hardin.
All right.
Congratulations. If you're watching,
Lori.
please send me an instant message with your address. We'll have this sent out. And if you're not, we'll track you down and get it over. So, Beth, can I hand this to you? And
Yep.
We'll just send that over.
While you're doing that, Jason Blazak of Screamline Studios says hello. Alan Wobser says that the live show was amazing. He jumped a couple times.
Nice. It's awesome.
And let's see, Anthony Pena says great stuff here. Somebody else said something too. Bunch of people. Alan's on. Drew Badger is on.
Drew.
Yeah, good to see you.
Nice, nice.
Glatzer, hello. Glenn Gilmore.
Oh, lots. Oh, that's
Tons of people are watching.
Oh, that's outstanding.
A
Yeah.
lot of people watching live. And what we'll do is we're going to bounce back and forth. So this is going to be interactive with the folks that are watching it as well.
Good. Sounds good.
But to start, and truthfully, a lot of people watch this recorded. So after we end it and save it, a lot of people are going to watch it. So,
Sure.
So those who are watching it later, feel free to send over comments. We'll follow up on those as well.
Absolutely,
I mean,
yeah.
if it runs six or 8 months from now, we'll follow up that stuff.
Yeah.
So, Ed, you and I have known each other for quite some time, and I always kind of see this phrase or this sentence kind of put out there to describe Midnight Syndicate's stuff.
Okay.
And it's Midnight Syndicate creates symphonic soundtracks to imaginary films.
Yeah.
Is that?
Yeah, and it's not. It doesn't roll off the tongue particularly well, and people are like, they don't always understand quite what that means. But it is the best description of what we do. It's we create albums that are essentially movie scores to imaginary films. Discs that when you put them on and you close your eyes and listen to it, it kind of tells a story with the music, and it kind of pulls you along into this world that we're trying to create, whether it's like an asylum or a haunted house or a haunted carnival or whatever. And I think one of the big things that doesn't include that phrase, but it's part of our sound, is sound effects. We use sound effects much like they used to do on the old radio dramas from way back in yesteryear, and blend that in with the music. So you have music, and then you have occasional sounds that just hint at something to kind of pull you further into the world, and that's the sound of Midnight Syndicate. Instrumental music, mostly symphonic in style, sound effects. Close your eyes, kick back, and kind of let the music take you away. Take you somewhere. Or just set the atmosphere for while you're working on something creative or reading, or set the atmosphere.
So I read that your music, I don't say your music because it's you and Gavin. So when we say we, that's Gavin and you, and you guys probably produce the majority of your music. Are there folks who jump in and help along with that? So it's like the two of you, huh?
No, Gavin and I have written all the music on Midnight Syndicate. Has been written by either he or I. There's one song on that Realm of Shadows album that was written by our friend Tim Blue. He was the engineer on our album Realm of Shadows, and he actually and Born of the Night. He was also our engineer. He's really a big part of the sound of those two albums. He was a big part of that. And so he has one song on there that he wrote. But outside of that, no, everything else on all the Midnight Syndicate albums is written by either Gavin and I. And we really share that creative responsibility. It's a really 50-50 a relationship right there where we both, write about half, each one of the albums, we just bounce back and forth, which is nice,
Do you, when you're working along with Gavin, are you working in different spaces and you bring the stuff together and blend it? Because it has a great feel. I mean, it's like great art. You realize that you're looking at a Picasso when you see a Picasso, and you realize you're listening to Midnight Syndicate when the album's in. And so I can't tell the difference. I can't tell the difference. I don't listen to probably all your 19 collections.
Yeah.
I can't tell
that's
the
a lot.
difference of
That's a lot.
what
Yeah.
Gavin writes versus what you write.
And that's the best part, you know, and I think that's just because we work well together. We've always had a similar creative vision. I mean, you figure we're in a band. We've been in a band together now for like 22 years. That's a long time to be working, right? With somebody like, you know, and there's a lot that goes into that, you know. But we've always been, at the core, we've always been basically on the same page creatively. So I think it makes it easier for him to write music and me to write music, and then at the end have it just kind of blend together, you know, seamlessly. Because he does write in his own studio over in Willoughby. And I do all of my music here down the dungeon in Chardon. And we'll write our music, and I'll send it to him at different stages of the process, and he'll do the same to me, and we'll listen to it and kind of talk it out and give feedback to each other. And slowly we craft these songs that we've written individually and build them up and to where they're done, and it's a little bit of each of us in the different songs, and at the end it comes together. Yeah.
I would imagine folks who haven't heard of Midnight Syndicate have probably heard their music, because as I was just kind of grabbing some information and we've known each other for quite some time, so I was gathering information.
At least 98.
Yeah.
At least 98.
At least since 98.
Yeah.
Right. That I realized, and I've heard snippets, and I'm like, is that Midnight Syndicate? And, but the Today Show.
Oh, yeah.
The Today Show,
No,
Monday Night Football.
No,
NBA on TNT, the Sci-Fi Network.
Yeah,
Ellen DeGeneres.
Yeah, no, that's the exciting part, because you never know where. Like I said, the music's good background music. It sets the mood. So we've made a business, one of our thing out of setting the mood for whatever it could be, for haunted houses, for people that like to play games, and that goes for filmmakers or people that are holding events that want to create, or a TV show that wants that right background, for whatever they're doing. And so it's great to hear the music this time of year, and you never know where it's going to pop up. Like last year, last year I think we were on. There's a show on Sci-Fi Channel called Happy, and it's a show. With like Christopher. I don't know his last name, but he was one of the guys from Law and Order, and it's this cartoon character, and it's a really, really super dark show, but very, very cool. But yeah, they took one of the songs off of our Christmas album and just played it through the entire thing, through a whole middle section of the show, and it was like a music video type thing, and it was really amazing, and totally came out of left field because we didn't know that was going to happen. But there were always little fun surprises where the music's going to pop up, and then going into haunted houses and amusement parks especially, and just picking up some of the music coming through the speakers and hearing it. You get a kick out of that. It's kind of cool because it's especially right now, this is the time for Syndicate music.
Yeah, so like, am I right, 1920-ish collections, unique CDs? Is that about what your number is at this point?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I think it is right about 19 now. And there's a couple collections. There's a couple there's 2 collaboration albums on there. One, with the Destiny Beard, where we just basically took Midnight Syndicate music and had she layered her voice over top of those songs, like reinterpreted them, if you will, and added like lyrics to them and made them her own. We have 2 albums like that are with her, and then we have 2 like that, Out of the Darkness. Even though there's a couple new songs on there, that's more like a collection, and we have the Halloween music collection. So there's more like 5 albums that are 4 albums that are kind of like little. But yeah, the rest of them are all new music. Some of them are scores to films that we've done. But yeah, the other ones are just, and we're not done yet. We have so much more that we want to do yet musically.
So why did 97, 98 was the first time that you kind of started to layer over and create this music? Is that the right time frame, or did it start earlier than that?
It started probably earlier than that a little bit. Like 96, I was writing the score to my first movie out of college. A micro budget, shot on like VHS tape. It's a version of the Dead Matter movie that we would later redo. But writing the score for that and writing the score for other student films that I did in college kind of got me into the writing dark instrumental music, and I kind of felt, that's kind of a place I feel really comfortable. And I could never really sing, so I like gravitated towards instrumental music. And I always liked instrumental music because it kind of because you just sat there in the background. You can close your eyes and it would kind of just take you away to someplace. And I just kind of liked the way music could do that. And I thought instrumental music was really good for that. So I always kind of gravitated in that direction with everything I did. And in '97, I released the first Midnight Syndicate album, which was more of a solo project. And it still had the same idea of like soundtracks to imaginary films. But with that first one, it was very eclectic. It was all over the place. Lots of different styles. Some dark, some not so dark. Still like little mini soundtracks to imaginary films, but not a very cohesive package. So put that out. It didn't do so great. It was a little bit of a learning, we all kind of learn as we go along. But the best music that came off that album was the dark instrumental. So I knew after that, I want to go all dark instrumental. And I don't want to write the music all myself. I want to find a partner. So I found with Gavin that other half of the writing, that creative person that you could bounce things off of and really, elevate. I think that we together do better than we could do if we just one of us was on our own and making this like that. And that first album was '98 with Born of the Night. Then Born of the Night took off, and then we were off and running, and then it's never gonna. I haven't stopped since really. So that's a long answer to your question.
Yeah, and that's what's cool about this live thing is that there are long answers.
Sorry.
And
okay,
no time frame.
All right.
So long answers are cool here. In terms of, so I would consider, and I would imagine there's a lot of folks watching and will watch later. What's that?
Check and see if everyone can
hear.
Can
everybody hear all right? Just want to make sure that the sound is coming through. I think we're good.
I think so, but it's good to check.
I would imagine, I'd consider myself a Midnight Syndicate connoisseur, and there's a whole bunch of folks out there that would as well. And as I kind of mentioned on the front end, I kind of, from my perspective, it is kind of the sound of October. It's kind of the autumn feel, and if we put on, 13th, Born of the Night, any album, it just kind of brings me to October, even if I happen to listen to it in March or whatever the case might be. And from a connoisseur space, I'm not sure I don't know if there was a void that you recognized and you filled it, or whether you kind of, as you move through, you realize there's a void that was there.
It's a good question. It's a good question. Yeah, and it's a little bit of both. I think as, oh man, how do I describe this succinctly? It changes every time because I'm thinking about how I can put this together succinctly. That when you're producing an album, you got to find your audience.
Yeah.
And what we were doing back in 1998 is we were creating soundtracks to imaginary films, soundtracks to imaginary horror films, and that was really far out there. Really, there was no band doing that. You had a band called Mortis out of Europe that was doing like a fantasy version of that, somewhat. And you had like Vangelis, the composer, had done like a single album like that. Danzig had toyed with it for one album, but there was never a band that was saying, "Yeah, we're going to do soundtracks to imaginary films, mixing sound effects, and music the way we did, and just put these out." And so as a result, it was really hard to get like a record label interested. Even though we did really well with Born of the Night, no record labels were interested. They didn't understand how to market it or anything like that. And so we quickly realized, hey, we need to find our audience. And we did realize at the time that there wasn't the Halloween stores. When you go to a Halloween store, the selection of music that you had at the Halloween store was not very good. It was not bad. It was nostalgic, but it was old sound effects tapes that were dated or sounded dated or were cheesy because they were like, do some like silly laughter over top of it. A very fun Halloween, but like not very good for a professional haunted house. And, as far as horror music and haunted houses, what were they using? They were using a lot of that or nothing, or the Halloween theme. Yeah. There's so few themes, or maybe the Exorcist theme, if you got, they're really forward thinking, but So we saw, hey, there's like at these Halloween stores, there's people that want to decorate their house and play good music, and yeah, there's a void. We can fill this void, and these haunted houses, these professional haunted houses, these amusement parks, all these places want something that's like at the next level. If we take this, we do a really good job with it, it's a void we can fill. And the same thing went for music in games, in role-playing games. You know, role-playing games were really getting bigger, and you know, Dungeons and Dragons, and it's a whole industry there of people that yeah, I mean, needed some really good music to play while they do their games. So we saw a void, and we're like, we could boom. And now we're finding our audience, in addition to the people, which are our core audience, which are people that love Gothic music and love horror, and just like to listen to it year-round. That's always what we write the music for the people that just love to listen to the music and lose themselves in it. But we also know a lot of these people are going to listen to it on just sporadically. So we find them and we hit it, and yeah, it was a lot about filling the void. Now that's more the business side.
Yeah.
Like we did what we wanted to do creatively. It's packaged, it's done. How are you going to sell it now? That's when we look at the void and we look at what needed to be done marketing-wise and sales-wise. That's when I took off my Midnight Syndicate creative hat and got into the business, business side, and made all that happen. But it's almost two separate things. We always did what we wanted to do, but then when it's done, well, how are you going to make a living doing this? Well, you're going to have to really market it and sell it. So get into the business side, find the voids, find those people that your audience, and go after and just get it to them. Cold call stores, cold call amusement parks, and say, we got a CD we want to share with you, and just go for it and see what happens.
So it goes from there.
Yeah.
So is this what you do full time, or are you like a nuclear physicist off season?
Yeah, that's outstanding. No, Midnight Syndicate has been my full-time job since 2001. It's my full-time job for about 18 years now. When we first started getting those big accounts like Spencer Gifts and Spirit, I mean, they're ordering like tens of thousands of CDs that we're shipping out, you know, back in the day of CDs, right? And that's kind of like when it became like a full-time gig, and it has been ever since. And I mean, thankfully, thanks to the support of our fans and the wonderful people out there. I mean, that's amazing. I never take it for granted at all. You know, Colleen was able to stay home with my daughters, Mary Kate and Sarah, you know, and stay at home with them while I was able to do this with Midnight Syndicate, and you can't ask for much more. I mean, loving what you're doing and being able to make it a full-time gig. But it's creative, but it's a lot of business. You know, it's a lot of, you have this product and you have to get it out there, and it's just a lot of my year was spent, and still is always marketing, sales, and that side, which is the business side, which is not. It's honestly not much fun. It's not the fun side of the business. I don't mind it, but it is. It's certainly not creative. When I think creative, I think it's more, pound the pavement, get the music out there.
So rewind prior to Midnight Syndicate. Rewind, maybe to your teen years, maybe even your single digits. Like,
okay. All right.
So,
okay.
so we're going to take it back, and at what point? Maybe early memories. At what point did you realize you were creative, or you were going to be a filmmaker or a musician? Or at what point? You look back and you're like, "This is, I knew at this age," or was that something that you?
No. I think that early on, when I was very young, I really loved things like horror, things that were like horror. There was vinyl albums that I would get out from the library that would tell spooky stories. And I was actually able to find it recently. I don't have it with me, but I posted it on Midnight Syndicate's Facebook page because I just found the album that I listened to. It's like spooky stories. But anyway, I realized I listened to that album over and over. And there's another one with Vincent Price. And that is how I believe a little bit of the music, and they're, stories, so there's sound effects. Moved into so I think that was kind of a little bit, it started right there, the whole Midnight Syndicate thing, where I listened to these albums that were basically stories with sound effects and music on them, and also the classic Universal books and stories about real life ghost stories. I would just get the same books out of the library constantly, and I think I was actually quite scared by them, and like things I was a very like but I think I think that's good. I think if you're affected by horror or you're affected by the supernatural, stories and things like that, I don't know. I just come with that. Maybe it's like you have an imagination that's just firing. So I was actually very, didn't watch a ton of horror movies when I was really super young because I was kind of scared. But I think that's what fueled that fascination with the spooky ghost stories and stuff like that, because it got me all excited. It got my imagination rolling because actually it was maybe just a little bit scared in addition to everything else, just being fascinated by the whole thing. So I always knew that stuff I loved, and that's never changed. That's from as early as I can remember. That's like what I loved, and always did music, starting listening to my Beatles and Beach Boys and Four Seasons albums as a little kid, and then just straight on through. Always it was in bands or whatever. So the music and the fascination with all this has always been there, and I just always I was just creating things all the time, and then just kept going. And it had plenty of failures, like things that just didn't work out. But I guess just kept plowing through, and eventually found something that worked. And I just went for it. Yeah, I went for it. Yeah, but plenty of miscues but learning it, like things that I did that like not successful, but boy, I learned a lot, and it kind of like helped me get to where I could direct the Dead Matter in 2010, and where we could score films and where we could release these Midnight Syndicate albums.
Yeah, yeah. Any questions out there? We'll take a couple questions if there are any. If not, I've got a whole bunch to ask. All right, so go ahead and shoot them out, and we'll ask Ed those. You had talked about shooting the Dead Matter, micro budget out of college, or were you in college?
We just got out of college, and it was my first project out of college, and it was the Dead Matter. We didn't have any money, and we were shooting on VHS.
Who's we?
Me and my friends Mark and Jeff and Tony and Chris. Chris Robichaud, Tony Dempsey, Jeff Kasunik, and Mark Rackesee. Mark Rackesee was working with me to this day in various projects, including all these Midnight Syndicate shows that we're doing at Cedar Point. We got together and we put this movie and on no budget and shot on VHS with cameras we rented or were loaned from the John Carroll University, and we just went out and made a movie. Made a movie, and it's crazy, and it's very uber low budget, but I was always like, oh man, I'd love to do it one day again with a little bit more of a budget, but you never know if that's opportunity's ever going to happen. It's like a pipe dream. But then eventually, like 14 or like 10, 12 years later, Midnight Syndicate had gotten to a point where we were able to raise the funds and the interest to put together a remake of that movie and improve all the things that we wanted to fix from the first one. And we got the opportunity to do that. So in 2009, we released Dead Matter Part 2, if you will, version 2. And that's the full length movie that you see there that we were talking about, that you guys were involved in. And it's kind of cool that because you never know if that's actually going to happen. But we actually got to do it, and it was really neat. And it also was that Robert Kurtzman and Gary Jones. Robert Kurtzman, who's from K&B Effects, a really well-known director who did like Dusk Till Dawn and a whole bunch of other things. He's from this area, and he decided he wanted to bring back filmmaking to this area. So just the perfect timing. He moves into Mansfield at the same time Midnight Syndicate's on the rise. We score his first film that he shot down there, The Rage, and then he's like, we should do a movie. And I'm like, okay. So, so it's like, okay, so now we have some people that really know their stuff, that just made a movie in Mansfield, so they know all the connections and they know how to do it economically. And let's see if this, and they really know their stuff, because, obviously, I'm mostly music. I directed, but, not doing films at this level, no. You know what I mean? I need a lot of help, to do something like that. And they, were there at the time. We just got together and made the Dead Matter, so. Yeah. It's crazy.
And in the Mansfield Reformatory.
The Mansfield
some of that
fun.
shot down there, and it was.
Yeah. Mansfield Reformatory is great. What a great place.
You shot out all over
All
that
over.
movie.
Yeah, all over. Mostly Mansfield in the surrounding areas. There's
Okay.
a really super cool cemetery down there that we shot in, and like old like schoolhouse, and hospital. Just a whole bunch of like great locations that we were able to shoot down there. And so yeah, mostly in Mansfield and Crestline, which is like near there. So
There were a lot of Ohio people in that, but there were some folks that you brought in, some pretty big names. Tell us about some of those.
oh yeah, we worked with Andrew Devoff, who was from the Wishmaster and Toy Soldiers. Those are some movies. But if you saw him, you'd be like, oh, he's that guy. He's one of those villain guys that's got that look that you're just like, oh yeah, I saw him in that movie, or I saw him in
The
Lost.
perfect villain look, right?
whatever. So he's been in a lot of films, and so we brought him in because he was also in The Rage, so he already had a working relationship with Bob and Gary, so that made things a lot easier there. We brought in Jason Carter from a show called Babylon 5, and Jason Carter, he was great. What a great talent. And he was he was in line to play Dracula in Francis Ford Coppola's Dracula.
Oh.
Like right down to the very end. And then Gary Oldman, something happened, but that's the thing with entertainment.
Yeah.
Entertainment is like great, and it also sucks. Who are we kidding? Entertainment sucks, because the entertainment industry sucks because there's so few things that you can control, and sometimes it's just beyond your control, and things are what they are. But no, Jason's an incredible talent, and we got to work with him on that, and then later he helped us out on Carnival Arcane, and if you listen to that album and listen for that awesome English accent ringmaster that you'll hear throughout the album, that's him doing it. Just a great guy. And then yes, come all the people from like California that we brought in. We got to work with Tom Savini, who's a longtime fan of Midnight Syndicate that we met through the conventions and stuff like that. Got to get him involved, and Count Gore Duvall came in. Yeah, just a whole bunch of just. And Big Chuck Shadowski.
Oh yeah.
God, that was great. Talk about he's talk about people that like get you into it. Like Big Chuck, watching him and Little John, and watching some of the movies they would play. Yeah, that was part of my growing up into this horror world, and to be able to work with Big Chuck and give him a part in the movie where, at first he played it was some straight up acting that he was doing. It wasn't like comic, and he did awesome. Yeah. But then at the end, we had do a little bit of a little funny thing because he was the Pizza Pan. Doing all the ads for Pizza Pan at the time, so we gave him a little nod to that. So everybody in Cleveland, when we showed that movie, when we debuted it in Cleveland, and he comes on out with the Pizza Pan and has his line, the whole audience was just like laughing and roaring, and he was there, and it was great. So it was awesome moment, just to be able to work with Chuck, and then also see him show his acting chops, and at the same time get the laugh that he gave so many of us, over the years. So it was great.
Growing up, would you say that your catalog seems to indicate that that your heart is in music more than directing, but that does but also you filled a void there. Would you say that you're more of because you come out of college, first thing you do, you direct a movie, right?
Yeah.
Even if it was a micro budget, that felt like.
Yeah, I was trying for it because I loved, I spent most of my college in theater and video production over there in at that time. So that's really where, I was doing the music, but I had this, training and everything like that. So I really wanted to do the movies and tell stories in that way. And so, one of the cool things is after that Dead Matter, movie came out, which obviously wasn't a financial success. We did the Midnight Syndicate first album. Mm-hmm. Again, it set the groundwork for what we did, but we're learning, right? So what I did is that first Midnight Syndicate show, put out the first Midnight Syndicate album, not very successful. But then I said, well, guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to put together a multimedia show to promote that first album. And it's not just going to be people playing music. It's going to have film, because we have the connections to make film. So we're going to have film playing in the background, and we're going to interact and score the film live on stage, and we're going to have actors, because I have a theater background. We're going to have them come in and enter the audience and do all this crazy stuff and make it a real one-of-a-kind immersive theatrical experience. And we're going to do it to promote that first album. So we did, and we did that down at Cabaret Dada, which is down on West 6th was a theater down there, and it was really fun. Learned a lot. It was cool, but I mean financially, not a success, but learned a lot, and happy certainly with that. And then I guess that what I think is the craziest thing is because we did those shows, Gavin came down and saw those shows, so he got a really good idea for what Midnight. He also kind of knew about that album. He was one of the people I bounced ideas off of that first album, just as like not in a very in a more informal way.
Yeah.
So he was aware, but it was because of those things that got Gavin into Midnight Syndicate, which we know was huge. But also the cool thing about that is now you see then, gotta do my math, 17 years later, Midnight Syndicate's like, well, we have to do some live show. We felt like it was time for us to do a live show. So when we finally went to Cedar Point to propose what we were, to do this show, it's like, well, it's different, but at the same time, it's not something that I haven't done before, because I pulling back from '97. So who would it's like, so I did a show where we have people playing live, producing films and playing the score live to the films, and then having a whole interactive sound effect and like lighting and actors all like breaking the fourth wall and jumping into the audience and making that all happen. It wasn't because of the '97 live show, which wasn't financial success, but the learning experience from there set us up 14 years later to be able to go into a situation like, yeah, I can do this. So it's like, it kind of felt like it's all leading up to what we're doing now. And that's super long, but we're doing long answers. This is long answer time.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So you were doing, back in the 90s, you were doing this immersive theatrical releases of your CDs.
Yeah.
And that's, how many did you do? Because I know that Gates of Delirium was there.
So we did Born of the Night, then Realm of Shadows. Born of the Night, Realm of Shadows, Gates of Delirium, that's our asylum. Then Vampire, which is the first one we started doing. Well, no, Gates of Delirium, we started doing some CD release parties. But Vampire, there's a big CD release party for that one. And then Dungeons and Dragons. Because at that time, there was a lot of interest in our music for gaming. And so the people that make Dungeons and Dragons said, hey, will you do a soundtrack for Dungeons and Dragons? And we were like, oh my God, that's awesome. So we totally did that. Came right off of that with something very dark, you know what I mean? And that's 13th Hour, which is like a real important album for us. Out of the Darkness was a compilation album. Then we got into the time period with Bob, where I did the soundtrack to The Rage. Gavin and I did Dead Matter Cemetery Gates, which is another really cool album with a lot of cool, awesome songs, and some that are influenced by the Dead Matter movie, but just, influenced by it. The Dead Matter Cemetery Gates kind of standalone album. Soundtrack to the Dead Matter. And then we did the Halloween Music Collection. Then those two collaborative albums with Destiny of Beer we talked about.
Yeah.
Carnival Arcane, Monsters of Legend, tribute to the Universal, and then after that it was Christmas and the Zombies album. I mean, this is a lot. Oh, and there's X Giant. I did the soundtrack to Gary Jones' film X Giant, which played on Sci-Fi Channel, which was I was totally geeked. I'm not gonna lie. I totally recorded it. Like when my name came up on the TV screen, I'm like, yes, oh, it was awesome. So yeah, no, I did the soundtrack to X Giant instead. That's the soundtracks to films are more my thing. Where Gavin, of course, all the Midnight Syndicate albums are collaborative things. The 3 scores that we did to films are actually more. That's more my thing.
It feels as though the journey of Ed Douglas and Midnight Syndicate has kind of prepared you for doing all kinds of different things, including redoing the Dead Matter, performing live, having this immersive experience at Cedar Point, which is totally cool. And I'm not going to ask you yet what is coming next, or if you had a forecast what the next 5 years. I'm not going to ask you. So
oh, you're not going to ask?
I'm not asking you yet.
It's 7:38, so you might want to. So
I'm going to ask I'm going to ask you soon. But before I ask you that, do you mind walking us just really quickly? Well,
yeah,
here?
Sure, I will. And I'll note this is so.
Tell us where we're at first.
So we're at the dungeon, which is not. I mean, not many people have been here before, but this is great. I'm so glad that you guys have come down here. So this is the dungeon, and this is my little little escape here. So all the stuff you see up here is here for a reason. It's kind of crazy, but this is my little zone where I can go, like the Scotch. Scotch is tasty stuff. But yeah, all this cool stuff. I love old beer and light up things and stuff. But hey, we see here, I gotta move these down, but I just left them up. The Alien soundtrack, the Superman soundtrack, and the Star Wars are like the 3 albums that really probably influenced me most, like musically. Just kind of like gave me the inspiration to do what, to actually think of like making music as a career, like instrumental music, like symphonic kind of music as a career. But yeah, I mean, you see just a bunch of stuff here.
Vinyl Arcade.
Vinyl Arcade.
Tell us.
Can I
about
plug
that.
Vinyl Arcade?
Yes.
Please do.
All right.
You got a hat?
People
and-
ask. I am wearing the hat.
Yeah.
I forgot. I actually, because I always wear hats. But yeah, what is? Oh wow, what's
Vinyl
that?
Arcade.
A little bit of Vinyl Arcade, right?
See?
So, I got together with some really good friends, and we have a band called Vinyl Arcade. It's a cover band that plays 70s and 80s music. But the big thing we do is we play TV themes from the 70s and 80s. TV themes, and even like a Cleveland themed commercial every once in a while.
Nice.
I'll leave it at that. We have, of course, a video element.
Yeah.
Is right, because I can do video, right? So we got to have a video element. We have a video element, and it's a lot of fun. And if you, oh my gosh, if you remember Laverne and Shirley, or Cheers, or Friends, or I don't know, maybe a little Scooby Doo or something like that. I mean,
It's fun.
It's
It's
fun.
from the audience. We
Yeah.
love Vinyl Arcade because
It's-
yeah.
you just come and
it's just a fun little.
It's a
You're gonna
fun
get taken
evening.
back. You're gonna take back to the time. So
And it's
anyway,
good.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Thank
It
you.
is good.
People that we've met, worked with over. You see D. Snyder. We worked with him on that Van Helsing's Curse that we still, we were as distributor for that album to a lot of the stores. And yeah, you just walk around here. Look, hear the old Dead
Oh.
Matter. What's this?
Oh.
We talk about the old Dead Matter. This is a micro budget movie. Here it is.
Oh, that's the old one.
The old one from '95. Oh, the tickets.
You should
March
release that.
I should. At some
I mean,
point.
just for the
Yeah.
class.
just for people. Yeah. So my mom cut out an article.
Aw.
And yeah, no, my parents are
Mom.
super awesome and totally supportive. Heineken is my favorite, easily accessible, easy drinking beer. I like it. I love it. I'm a big fan of that beer.
Good to know.
Yeah.
Clapboard.
If anybody
Here's the
wants
last,
to get a
yeah,
gift
the
for
last
Ed.
shot of the Dead Matter from 2010.
Nice.
Love it.
That was the last shot we have. So I took it and I kept it. So
Don't erase it.
oh, and here is that crazy first album I was talking to you about.
Wow.
Caffeine for the Imagination. Well, okay, maybe not my catchiest of phrases, but you get it. Yeah, it was just trying something out here.
Yeah.
So that is so. And of course now Cedar Point. My buddy Keith, who's in Vinyl Arcade, gave me this awesome 1980 Cedar Point map, and I just
That's cool.
and artwork for my kids then.
Yay.
Yay! We'll have to scan through all that equipment there. I have a Vinyl Arcade gig on Saturday, so that's why all that there. And then we come over to here. Then this is the area where we have where we do the music. Where facing this direction, we have do the music, got the keyboards and stuff like that. As you see, a lot of sound modules, a lot of sounds that we use are in here. But then right over here, 4 computers that are just loaded with sounds, samples that we literally can just pull, and I can play on the keyboard here, and that's where we get a lot of the sounds. That's more, when we first started off, it was all sound modules and like synthesizers, and now it's we're able to get better sounds using the technology. My Apple for editing video, and then this is a bit of a mess, but you can see.
Avoid
But
the
you
desk.
see, well, you can just do a
Quick
quick thing. Whoa,
business.
but you know what?
Creative.
It is, but
Business.
it is.
Creative.
You get it. It's like this zone here. When I'm facing this direction, it's more creative. Even like where Roger's standing right there.
Oh,
Things
yeah.
like this, just keep a little bit of a theme and stuff like that. Yeah. Little, But when, like I said, I live it's duality, right? Over here, it becomes business stuff.
We were saying before, it's business in the front, party in the back, right?
Yes,
so
exactly.
just kind of like
it's my
Midnight Syndicate mullet.
Ed's studio mullet.
Yeah, there it is. There, then, yeah.
Well, thanks
So-
for sharing this where the magic happens.
Yeah.
And
No, I'm glad. I'm happy to.
all right, so Beth, what we're going to do is give a few minutes for folks to ask questions if there are any. Remember, if you're out there and you're sharing this video, there are a whole lot of giveaways. We've got
That's a lot of stuff.
Yeah, a lot of stuff.
Yeah, it is.
The Dead Matter.
Share away,
This
people.
is the remake.
Mm-hmm.
This is a nice budget. I remember being on set. I mean, it felt cool.
It was cool. We shot on 16mm film. I don't think you'll see many movies shot on 16mm film anymore. It's just not. It's not economical, and the technology is so good you don't have to. But so it's a little like
It has that.
it has this feel of the 1980 movie, 1981, 1982 movie, which was what we were going for, and it's like it's a little time capsule now because you won't see movies like that made anymore.
So
not quite like that, you know what I'm saying?
Rick Davis once says, "Hey Ed, when will we see a live orchestral Midnight Syndicate show a la Trans-Siberian Orchestra?"
I think we have a bucket lists.
Mm-hmm.
And one of my bucket lists was to go into a theater and/or a television set and see my name up on the screen. As I go along this journey, I check little things that I've in my bucket list. I will say that on that list is to have an actual orchestra play Midnight Syndicate music, and I've actually researched it. It is not as it's not impossible. It's not impossible. I can't even say that I haven't even started looking into what it would cost to do something like that and start reaching out to different, and it's just not. Some of those things.
I wonder if we know some people.
some of those things that you talk about are they're really far off. But that's not so crazy. So yes, to answer you, I think that I could absolutely. It's something that has to happen.
Only better than
that's a great
Trans-Siberian.
question.
It's funny how Trans-Siberian Orchestra has it was done before Trans-Siberian Orchestra, but they have so marketed it that's now it's like Kleenex for tissues. If it's a live orchestral and it's got other stuff going on, then TSO is like the pinnacle of it. It's so funny how that's become.
I'm glad from there. They worked really hard. They found a
Yeah.
niche. And they ran with it. They found a void and they
Yep.
jumped in until they filled it. Yep.
I mean, they probably didn't realize there was a void until they did it. Then they were
No.
like, "Whoa!"
When that first heavy metal, Sarajevo came out, I was a DJ at WJCU, and we got that. It was I'm using, but it was Sabotage, and it was just one song on there that had that big song. Their big.
What is it?
God Rest You Merry Gentlemen. What's it called?
Was it Christmas in Sarajevo?
Christmas in Sarajevo.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it was just they threw it on a thing. We played it. We're like, oh my god, I've never heard anything like this. A heavy metal version of a Christmas song, and it just blew up. And look, they hit it. They struck gold. They said, let's just do it. And that's great.
And
I
they
love them
did.
because they use heavy metal with the keyboards and the orchestra. I've always liked Sabotage and what they did with TSO as well. Really good stuff.
I did
Yep.
as well. So anybody who shares, again, we had the movie. We have a whole bunch of CDs.
CDs and stuff.
Share them.
Yeah.
We'll be passing those out next week. We have the next 3 weeks with some really cool guests as well.
Awesome.
But as those who are joining late, again, we're with Ed on October 29th. It's 2019 because people can be watching this for years. It's 2019. It's October 29th, and we figured it'd be perfect time to interview Ed Douglas.
Jason
and-
says new Christmas CD now, please.
Yes, Jason's been pushing me hard. Jason from Screamline.
Oh,
Studios.
yeah.
Screamline Studios, rock on. Screamline Studios, we've been working with
Yes.
them since the beginning, right there, and they do all of our sets, even for all the Silver Bed Cedar Point and stuff like that. But yeah, Jason's been bugging me for another Christmas album because I honestly think it is literally one of my favorite things that we have done as Midnight Syndicate.
I say you do it.
Check it
So,
out, Christmas. Definitely.
Two more questions before we not from. I mean, if somebody up there. So we're gonna close down. We're gonna ask two more questions.
Okay.
One is it's gonna be a really difficult one because this is like choosing your
child?
a child.
Oh, I think I know where we're going with this. All right.
So what would you say might be, and I'm putting you on the spot, might be your favorite 2 to 3 collections or
Of Midnight Syndicate albums?
Yeah, I mean, how do you pick that stuff? I'm putting you on the spot. It might not be your best. It might be your favorite.
My personal
Your
favorite.
personal favorite.
Oh gosh.
So we know
Okay, I'll say
Christmas.
13th Hour and Christmas.
Those 13th Hours is your top, and then Christmas, or are they just
Oh, so tough.
You gotta choose. You gotta
I have to choose.
You have to choose.
I'll say 13th Hour.
13th Hour?
Because you want to, it's got so much personal, it has so much personal, you know, I remember making all those sound effects by hand, like, you know, and it was such a step up from what we had done before. Musically, I love the songs on there, but no, when I hear Carrie, who does the voice, the ghost in there, there's a story. She does a great job. If you just listen to it in headphones and close your eyes, I think it's a great, that's it. That if I had to pick one, this is the only one I suppose would be 13 though, but it's tough. That's not very nice of you to ask.
I know. It's a terrible question, and this is really part B to the first question. That is, do you listen to your stuff? Is that the best way to listen to it? With earphones or earbuds? Is that so?
If you get noise canceling headphones and you listen to our stuff,
close your eyes and turn off the
in
lights.
In a dark room, you're in for a treat. Especially Gates of Delirium, 13th Hour, Carnival Arcane, Monsters of Legend. Those albums in particular. You close your eyes with noise canceling headphones in a quiet room, you will be transferred into a story that totally takes you. I mean, gosh, especially Carnival Arcane. My gosh, the sound effects on there alone, they just sound so good. And when you have it on a headphone, like there's so much stuff that you won't hear on your speakers unless you're in a dead silent room. But there's so much going on in that album, sound effects wise, and with headphones, you're for sure going to hear it all, and you're going to be in for a treat. So yeah, definitely.
So those of you who haven't heard it, noise canceling earphones.
Yeah, just be the ones that kind of I mean, earbuds. Sometimes you can get a little, but if you actually get the ones that cover your ears up,
Yep. There you go. All right, so I'm back to the question that I said I was going to ask before.
Okay.
And that is, so Midnight Syndicate, and I'm sure that Gavin, this is more of a Gavin and Ed question, so it's maybe unfair for me to ask of you, but in terms of where does Midnight Syndicate go, or what are the creative projects, bucket list, things like that? Any?
Well, we've really enjoyed our time at Cedar Point. It's been very good for us and a wonderful opportunity for us, and I know that Gavin has really enjoyed it too.
Yeah.
Getting out from the studio and actually getting out and involving, and he's become more and more involved with those shows and on a creative level. So I know that's been really great, a very cool thing for him. So I think that it's possible that the Cedar Point could happen, for another year, depending. A lot of it's beyond our control. But I know that we've given them really good shows, and that's been, that's what we want. We just want to make them happy because it's been a great opportunity for us. So that is something. But that, things change always, and so that's never our, I think we'll get back to making another album. I have so many song ideas that I cannot wait to get back at. We even have an idea for like what the next album would be. And so I think once you do, then like I might find myself like speaking in a couple of little song ideas into the old tape recorder a little bit more often now, because I'm actually thinking in the back of my mind about song ideas or noodling around on the keyboard. So that's it. Those are the most immediate things I can say. Those things for sure are going to happen. And then like we said, to have an orchestra play Midnight Syndicate music at some point in time would be pretty awesome. So I mean, I think it's we'll have to see for sure. Oh, and then people are asking for a DVD of all these live shows that we're doing at Cedar Point. Well, and I understand it, but the problem is it's just so hard to do, and because the shows are so immersive, and unless you're listening in surround sound, you're going to miss so much, and so much is in the dark. I'm not going to say anything more. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's kind of hard to reproduce that onto a DVD and make it a meaningful thing, but giving the fans some sort of representation of what we're doing in these shows, maybe a music video that kind of does some of the highlights of each of the shows for them to look at and at least see kind of like what we're doing. That might be something that might tackle in the next year or two.
So where do we find Midnight Syndicate stuff? Midnight Syndicate?
Oh yeah, MidnightSyndicate.com.
Right. And
Midnight Syndicate, Facebook, we're very active on Facebook, and more so now we're getting a little bit more on Instagram. Twitter, we're also there. We just published, for the people that are listening right now, for the next 3 or 4 days, we have a Halloween playlist that we just posted on YouTube and on Spotify. And you can get to it from our Facebook page and even on the Midnight Syndicate. We did a news post on it. But it's 4 hours of our favorite Midnight Syndicate Halloween music. So you can just put play, and it'll just take you through 4 hours of Midnight Syndicate music for trick or treating or just to get in the Halloween mood.
There you
So,
go.
Nice.
yeah,
Well,
check it
Ed,
out.
thank you for sharing. Beth, did you have?
I was going to say Vinyl Arcade has gigs
Ooh,
coming up.
Yes. Please check out Vinyl Arcade if
Yeah.
you're in the Cleveland area. VinylArcade.com. And we got gigs coming up this year, and we got a lot of really exciting things happening next year in the off season when Midnight Syndicate's not doing its thing. So definitely check out Vinyl Arcade. I think you'll get a kick out of it.
Well, thank you,
Thanks,
Ed.
Matt.
Thank you, Gavin, too.
Yeah, absolutely.
For sharing your talent with us, you guys, the sound of Halloween.
Thank you.
Whether we listen in March or in October or any other time of the year, we kind of flash it back to this October feel. Your CDs do take us in
Okay.
places, and we heard today that if you haven't already, put on earphones that cover the ears and try it out again. Thanks again for anybody who shares. Remember, next week we're going to pull a bunch of names, so share this thing out. There's millions of views and listens out on YouTube, so we know that everybody listens and loves it. And thanks for sharing that with us today.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, buddy.